Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sada and Liz and everyone here for joining me. I am actually from Colombia, but I live and work for the Maker Institute here in Prague, Czech Republic. So if you ever want to come to Prague, please don't hesitate to contact me. I love showing people around. Oh goodness, Sean would like to record. Okay. I'm so sorry, I don't know how to access it so that you can.
On the bottom of your Zoom window should be a little share screen button.
Yeah, but because it's recording, it doesn't allow it to, so Zoom will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit. So I cannot present it. What I can do is maybe share it with one of you so that you can open it.
Yep, that's fine. If you want to drop a link in the chat, I can share it.
Thank you so much.
Well, I didn't know this would be a thing.
It's the first time I encountered it, so
yeah.
So, yeah, Maker Institute. Perfect. Thank you, Sada. I'll just say next slide or something. In Maker Institute, we develop polytechnic education for all audiences, and our mission is to really empower the most amount of people with this digital manufacturing technology and have that also has a social impact and that is for the greater good. So on the next slide. The Maker Institute was established as a cooperation between two different technical schools here in Prague, the Czech Technical University and the University of Chemistry and Technology. And they're the first daughter organization of what is called Campus Davice, which is a agglomeration of 6 different technical institutes inside of a campus. And now we also receive the funding of a technology transfer institute out of one of those academic institutions. So we are a nonprofit institution. We are separate from the schools, but funded and founded by the schools. So we're not an academic makerspace. We're, in the words of the survey, community makerspace. However, we are very much attached to what is going on in the universities and the research there. Next slide, please. So who is Maker Institute? Although it seems like we have this enormous team and we're just starting, we have been operating for the last year, and this is our 2nd year in which we're actually starting operations because of this bureaucratic organization that I showed you between all the technical schools and whatnot. We had a hard time starting the institute, even though it was the request of the students to have such a space inside of the universities. The universities then decided to open it up as a new legal entity. So I am the director of the institute, and I count with full support of Martin, Veronica, Ondřej, Martin once again, Jan, etc. But as a separate legal entity, we have, let's say, our other people. But we refer to the board of directors, a director of the institute inside the Faculty of Architecture of one of the schools, and the inside of the Czech Chemical Technical University from part of the Career Center. So the aim is really how to drive more students into these technical fields, and at the same time how to show them what they can do within their careers. So help them in doctoral research or give them a little bit of a glimpse of what's going on in industry and really merging this knowledge triangle. Next slide, please. So our mission is to really be as sustainable as possible within our projects, to use biomimicry or nature's design advice or algorithms to help people come up with these bottom-up solutions, and to push circular economy. But as part of our SDGs and goals, we really focus on delivering quality education. So even though we do want to aim at certain SDGs, We want to deliver the best education for everyone that is maybe not accessible to all the population here in Czech Republic that are not affiliated with these polytechnic schools and universities. Next slide, please. So this is the core presentation. The vision of this institute is really to drive more engagement from people to be able to make their cities better places, to be able for them to become prosumers and not consumers, be engaged in producing things that they make at home, and at the same time drive the entrepreneurship spirit both from students inside of the universities, but anybody else, and how to drive all this research that is going on in school and actually make products that can help push the circular economy. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. So where is Maker Institute? We had some problems last year with the first Fab Lab that we were building. So we decided to go for the option of making a mobile Fab Lab, and that we could also reach the most amount of high schools and elementary students that perhaps are looking into these technical careers and build it, so increase that STEAM reach. We decided also to bring small 3D printers and tools, and eventually create further mini Fab Labs inside of the technical campus. So just using the resources that we have of being able to hop on into different areas of the university and bring those mini Fab Labs. And also we count on the fact that the largest stadium in the world, that's called Strahov Stadium here in Prague, is going to become an incubator and prototype hub. So the technical universities are going to take part into rebuilding the stadium that has been abandoned ever since the fall of the communist regime here in Prague. And we will be the makerspace that is going to aid a lot of those incubator projects. Next slide, please. So I think that we were maybe the fastest chartered mobile Fab Lab in the whole Fab Lab Foundation, but I might be wrong. As I said before, because of the fallout of our first space, we had to deliver this project. So if anyone is interested in knowing what our story was in building the mobile Fab Lab and perhaps are afraid that it's very costly or very difficult, we said we made it with all shared machines, with all reused furniture. It was very inexpensive and great, and we were able to, in the next slide, develop also some further courses, introduction to 3D printing, advanced 3D printing, meaning to those that were already acquainted to printing something that want to engage in CAD modeling, parametric design thinking or computational design thinking, and also going to schools that perhaps had 3D printers and wanted us to do something further. Next slide, please. So this is what we achieved after being chartered. We went to a Montessori style school here in the Czech Republic, and we taught 26 kids how to print different things, repair some items that they had of home, show them inside of our small Fab Lab, so we can have maybe 3 or 4 at the time, no one larger than 1.80 meters, but at the same time it was extremely fun because we managed to get to areas of the Czech Republic where they don't have this type of technology. Next slide, please. So our goals this year, or what we were able to achieve last year, was build this mobile Fab Lab. And we want to be able to establish our own Fab Lab and more of these mini Fab Labs. But at the same time, we are an institute that wants to hold our own projects. And therefore, our projects are going to be inside of these themes of making your city, making your home, and making your own. And today we're going to talk about the type of project that we developed inside of Make Your City. Next slide, please. So Make Your City is about creating projects where we're really engaging the community and citizens to create more community and cultural gatherings, create more green and furniture on the streets, and be able to prototype projects for the city. Sometimes the city has the funding, has the willingness to engage new fabrication projects, but they just don't have the time or ability to do so. So we as citizens need to be able to show the city what we want, and they will be able to engage it, not just wait for the city to do things for us. Next slide, please. So how it all started, I was part of an association in Stuttgart, Germany, where we were delivering these type of community spaces in the form of walking tree alleys or mobile trees. But this is not an idea that just came out of Stuttgart, but rather in the 1990s, the citizens of the city of Munich were already saying, enough, we want to have more trees in our street. We're just going to put them in buckets and roll them out and park them wherever we want. At the same time, in 2016, Stuttgart City said, well, what if citizens are able to design their own parklet? And a parklet is the extension of the sidewalk taken on inside of a parking space. And some of them made these lounging stations. Some of them had a little temporary hairdresser or a small pool with these little balloons or like little playgrounds, basically saying the city is not for cars, should not only be for cars. And if you have been in New York City recently, thank goodness that the city was able to now make these parklets more available due to Corona. So one of those positive aspects of really the people noticing how they have to live their city. And as well being able to say, well, if there's going to be development projects, and if instead of just making parking bays, because that's what the city knows, oh, the citizens will be happy with more parking bays, and why don't we make these community gatherings there? Next slide, please. So that's the pitch of the first pitch of the Maker Institute was just saying, well, let's bring the maker space and let's bring the classroom out on the street. We don't have a Fab Lab yet, so let's just do the Fab Lab outside on the street. Next slide, please. So our timeline started in March and April. Fortunately, we counted on the Skautsky Institute, the Scout Institute here in Prague, who lent us their workshop to be able to use an already designed model by the association in Stuttgart of having these chassis that would then be able to have attachable parts on, inside. We then worked with the Association of Students of the Faculty of Architecture to assemble them together. We also counted on the fact that there was a student project that closed down a street on campus and was so where we didn't have to go to the bureaucracy of asking for the parking permission that I had already gone through a lot in Germany and knew the process. Then we're going to have this demo day when we were going to shift the trees, and we're actually going to have moving trees and finally rearrange them somewhere else, wherever the citizen said, well, we want to have them in this next street or something like that, and plant them. So what people need to know is that we also worked with the University of Life Science. So we only grab tree seedlings that would rather be in a parking spot of tree seedlings or like in a parking ground of tree seedlings. And instead we put them on our temporary tree carts. And once they're done with growing and with the season, we plant them permanently elsewhere. So we're not saying that trees should be on these mobile carts forever. Next slide, please.
Also, you have about 7 minutes left.
Okay.
I think I like jumped all the way to the end of your presentation. Sorry. Okay.
No problem. So our goal was to make 20 of these carts together with people. We taught them the low tech, how to weld, how to design, how to model them in CAD or see them in CAD. And we said, we have to make 2 stations so that we can see them moving, and events per station, having singers, having people, having lectures there. Next slide, please. This is, let's say, what the workshop at the Skautsky Institute looked like. So it was really about steel, and then we moved forward. We went forward and also taught them what and how to put on top of them. Next slide, please. The architecture students were also involved, and they also got accredited with 2 ECTS credits. That's 24 hours of their university time, where we told them, well, how they could enhance the street and these trees, and they designed something. In this case, these women here designed a dating card because they didn't feel that there was enough places to meet people privately on campus, so they only used reused material, but the same chassis that we had. Next slide, please. We invited everyone to come. Unfortunately, we also had a high school that was very much engaged. They had this ecological council group, so they joined us on every single event that they made. So here you can see some high school students. Maybe you don't see the differentiation, but it was a huge event on campus where anyone could join. Next slide, please. And we did the planting. We taught them about how much soil they should put, that the trees don't want to be lonely, so sometimes they need also extra bushes next to them. Next slide, please. And here you can see a little bit how this installation process was like. Some of the parents that came with the students were just there to watch them plant some trees, and at the end of the day they ended up putting their gloves on and also joining because they had no idea what they were up for. So we created this this alley, or this alley of trees, and it was permanent on campus for 2 months. Next slide, please. And then we had to move them somewhere else. So we worked with the city of Prague and the municipality. Huge bureaucracy. We got the permission of moving them finally 2 hours before we were actually moving them. So I was ready to just put them on site and, I don't know, be asked by the police what they were there, but it didn't matter. Next slide. And more or less the weight of each cart is equal. We got a little bit larger trees from the university donated than we wanted to, but you can still carry them by hand. And once that you park them elsewhere, you can also remove the handle and put some legs in it. Next slide, please. So we put them on the second location. Everybody said there's already trees there, but we said yes. Unfortunately, we weren't able to choose a street with no trees, but it was a great place because generally this area, or this plaza, remains very barren. So it was also about showing how to enhance a place by community gatherings. And we had some high school girls coming at the end of the project and telling us this was the place where we would meet after school as well. And each tree was enhanced with a QR code that would tell you about how it was doing. Next slide. This is also a great area to chill. So some of the service workers that come and do the trash were also invited to join, because they generally chill next to their trash trucks. So now they had a new place to actually take their coffee and rest throughout the day. Next slide. And finally, we donated the trees. We were able to extract them out. So we reached out to different community places. For instance, this was a school that then taught the trees how to plant them back. Next slide, please. This is how the deep planting work. I inversed a bit the slide. Sorry about that. So next slide. So here you can see how we made this new card. What was also important for us is not just to take the concept from Stuttgart, which is a kind of like open source type of content, but also give them back how we made it lighter, how we changed it, so that they can also know how to change, like what to improve for the upcoming years. And at the same time, we wanted to bring also this smart city solution, or this more high-tech solution onto it. So we also embedded some sensors inside, and we taught people about how to make their own sensors, how to update them to the cloud. So we really went full from very low-tech skills to high-tech skills, but for everyone to engage. Next slide, please. So now the goal was not just to make these carts and these stations, but also have this electronic dashboard and have some sensors on the trees. So we were able to measure the temperature, the relative humidity, and the soil moisture. And it was very important because not only does it serve for the users, we had to water the trees often. And instead of, well, sometimes you can stick your finger into it and realize, is it wet or is it not wet? But we also want people to know that it's not, that this is something that we cannot rely so much on the different sensations of people, and that it's really important sometimes to have this type of data. So we had a group chat in which we said, okay, have you checked the sensors today? It's going to be really hot this next week. How do we make sure that the trees are really doing well? So we had this dashboard made. Next slide, please. You can see it a little bit here better. And finally, it also gives us the data of the whole 6 months of this project. So this is the data that we give then back to the municipality of Prague 6, and we say, well, you know, this is how the trees survive. This is the relative humidity and the places there. And we really start giving them more environmental data so that they can see how the trees are doing. And they now want to buy our sensors and solution for their existing trees. So again, we're providing not just data for like a real-time type of solution that you need, whether you want to water or not, but also the collection and make sure that people understand that we are owners of our own data, and what data do we want to put out there for people. Next slide, please. Apart from many things, we also, 1 minute, I'm done. Apart from many things, we also took one of the trees and we designed other carts in the Maker Faire. It was also great because we were placed in the entrance of Maker Faire, so people were dropping their bags and sitting in our tree as furniture, which we used as a great way to immediately engage them in our workshop and all our information. The next slide will just be to remind you to keep in touch with us, to follow us on Instagram and everywhere else. If you have any suggestions on communication and social media and whatnot, I'd be happy. This is not my area of expertise and not my core interest at the moment. So I'm really hoping to get some comments and questions for you right now.
Thank you so much, Layla. There's a lot of awesome comments in the chat. I really suggest you go back and read through them. People are talking about how they'd like to try and recreate this and the alignment to the SDG project-based learning opportunities. One person asked if there was an estimated cost of the cart, maybe not including the trees or the soil, but just all of that. So if you could maybe glance through that, and then that was really the only question about the cost. So if you have any information, if you could drop that in the chat too while Liz is getting started, that would be wonderful. But thank you very much for sharing your project with us.
Of course, happy to answer any questions. So I'll be here in the chat, and thank you. And I'm looking forward for Liz's presentation.